in my research, it seems like I'm not just bumping up against a control system, but it seems like there are programmed responses once you get beyond the veil. For instance, like with your Barry's research about guides, and when you actually started questioning them, it was all a uniformal response.
wasn't it?
Like they all knew it. Oh, well, we're going to go back to this. And I'm bumping up against that too, but it leads me to believe that like that's not an accident. Like that's actually may be a part of the control mechanism itself, right? And do you believe that that is the case, that that wasn't an accident, that there was some kind of, again, I keep using the word program, right? That once you bump up against it, there's an automated, quote, automated response that
Yeah.
they go back to. Is that something that you found to
Well, it's
be
kind of
true?
twofold, really. I mean, um, you've got your action and reaction from the phenomenon.
Mhm,
Now, the reaction from a phenomenon can be two different things. There
mhm,
is surface reaction and is rooted reaction. Now, the
mhm,
surface reaction is basically it's just off the cuff, there and then, sort of a thing. It's just instant reaction to action. Remember when I was
mhm,
telling you that sometimes it's like a game of chess?
mhm,
And what we'll do is, say, for instance, if we know we have to be at a location at a certain time and a certain place, and we know we're being challenged by um, the reactive the reaction from phenomena, is that sometimes we'll leave it right to the last second, basically, to act, because then we're likely to be on location before phenomena is reacted. So we
mhm,
have to sort of play timings as well. Rooted responses from phenomena is usually because it's rooted within the individuals themselves, and they are going to literally bounce off the wall back at you. And the well-rooted ones, the longer they've been rooted, the more aggressive, the more challenging, the more restrictive they can be. And it can be a real pain in the backside, to be honest with you. I mean, they can really be turn it on and be really nasty. It's just that individuals that are well rooted in this will have their belief system. Phenomena can settle with individuals and whisper in their ears, in a sense of speaking, for tremendous amounts of time, as we know,
Yeah,
you know,
had that.
tremendous amounts of time, to the point where it literally is brainwashed the individuals into thinking a particular idea or stereotypical thing, stereotype. Then they are going to be, and they're prepared for battle by the phenomena, and they are going to do its cause. And those are the ones which will lash out or will try their best to sort of upset the apple cart, cause you problems, that sort of thing.
mhm,
Now, there is two ways of, those two variations of phenomena. You tend to know reaction pretty much straight away because it's effortless and it's quick responding. Where the other stuff, which is well rooted, they'll go out their way for no apparent reason, probably even a week later, a month later. It's not responsive straight away sometimes, just to basically try and ruin your life, it's
yeah.
because it's the phenomena bouncing back through them, which have been educated, taught to do this, and they believe it avidly, absolutely avidly. I mean, I remember when we went to one of the Bible belts and in America to lecture, and it was not good because they didn't obviously we weren't well back.
No.
But it was surprising that literally half the community were very upset to the point of tears.
Mm.
And we had people coming to us saying, "Look, I've introduced this phenomenon to my 12-year-old daughter," and we're sort of saying, "What?" And this is what it does. In certain key areas, if it's successful, they'll move on to next individual in that location. And before you know it, you've got vast communities of thinking in this strange way, where they think
Mhm.
it's all love and light, and it's very rewarding to offer yourself anything to these things. And that's problematic, even when you're the odd one out when you go to those
Yeah.
locations, you know. And there's been even times when, we know that the phenomena's kind of present and, and it's,
Mhm.
you tend to have a feeling about that and the way that you're scorned at, you know. So there's
Mhm.
two different methods of that you would probably antagonize through the process of your research. Then you sometimes, if that kind of doesn't work, then it steps up the game to targeted responses. That means it doesn't use the individuals, it will act itself.
We've done
And
that here as well, haven't we?
yeah, it's done that here. It's plus it's if like I said last time, we're kind of there's minions, the average
Mhm.
ones that, which would probably bother most people, but because we're pretty much seasoned, we're used to it. And
Well, I
that,
am now, aren't I?
well, you are
Because
now.
at the time
Yeah.
when we had a lot, I had a lot of phenomena going on in the house, and it's difficult to explain to people because people don't want to believe it or people
Mhm.
don't believe it. So you're kind of sort of like there in the middle, thinking, well, who do I go to? And then I
Mhm.
got directed through a very good friend of mine to him, to Steve,
Mhm.
and that's how Steve became involved in my case. But again, it was like little things, and I was absolutely, and I'm not joking, I was scared to the bone, chilled to the bone with it all, because it was just, I never experienced anything like this. But even though all these years have passed on now, I've become hardened to it,
Well, you do,
so
don't
it
Mhm.
doesn't bother me. So,
you? Yeah, it's a teaching curve, really,
yeah, it is.
and an acceptance that you don't underestimate your adversary. Never
Mm.
underestimate the adversary. Because when you do, then sometimes they send sometimes the big boy out, and there is clearly a hierarchy, and if some aren't getting what they want from it, then they will up the game. Now, I don't think it's a situation we can win. I
Right.
really don't. I think they've got the upper hand all the way. However, we are cleverly guiding ourselves, past the obstacles in a certain way where
Mhm.
we don't try and catch the eye so much and we don't get the retaliation. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It's a learning curve. And as you go through those learning curves, you kind of learn better modes and methods of how
Mhm.
to deliver your work without the interruptions so much. But yeah, like I say, you'll get instant reaction from the phenomena, and it's kind of like chess game, the reaction, action, action, reaction, equal and opposite, and
Mhm.
then is rooted, and you'll know when it's rooted because they are go out the real way. I mean, they can be real damn nasty people, which are just headstrong on trying to just disrupt you and get you off the path or cause upset, ruin, and anything, because even those things will divert you away. Anything that can divert you away. In other words, it will draw your attention to things that will be created, such as problems, so you end
Mhm.
up having to come off what you're doing and deal with this.
So, brilliant answer, brilliant answer. I think that my next question would be, how do you see the phenomenon? Do you, because I know people like to compartmentalize it, which I know you and I are against, but do you believe that these are all separate intelligences, or are they all operating under the same umbrella?
They're all operate under the same umbrella.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's all one
Okay.
person intelligence, and the deliverance of them in the way that we perceive them. Now, the thing is that people haven't quite grasped the understanding of about perception, human perception.
Mhm.
When you encounter anything in your working day, even if it's just another person, a person doesn't really exist. It's a construct. What happens is the information from your eyes is taken in and it's constructed in a reality within your brain. Now,
Mhm.
the phenomena can interact with that and interact with the brain. So basically, any form of perception of phenomena is under their guidance, not ours. It's under what they want to be perceived to be. Sometimes they'll perceive to be completely the opposite, to cloud our minds into thinking it is something different. These are all different things.
Mhm.
However, once you start, if you go through it all and just take away all the references to cognitive information and perceptive information and just look at the aspects of phenomena, it's the same. So the
Mhm.
clue is in the mechanism. I mean, you don't have to describe to me what a car is. If you've got the inner engine and the wheels, but power the vehicle to move, doesn't matter what
Mhm.
shape, what color, what size, it's a car. So it's in the same sense, you've got to be able to remove those things and see for what it truly is. Now, staring into the face of the phenomenon is a bit tricky because they like these little games that they play, and sometimes it's not always rewarding to go standoffish with phenomena because
Mhm.
sometimes we don't know what that capability of that
Mm,
particular phenomena
yeah.
which has been produced is. Um, People have attempted that, thinking, "Oh,
No.
I'm the great I am," and
Mhm.
it's fell foul. And before they know it, they have cohabitate and controlled, and that's basically because of the way they've dealt with this. Some are very submissive and will think that they'll be rewarded. Well, they will be rewarded in some ways
Mhm.
because the phenomena likes praise, likes worship, likes homage, likes all those things, and it will reward or even gift individuals. So I know that they're steering or manipulating the matrix, in a sense of speaking. The reality that we see around us is only constructed through our understanding and perception of it. What it really is. I mean, just as color, for an example, we can see red, blue, greens, yellows, and things, but color doesn't exist. It's our brains that create color, and the variety of color within the visual spectrum. In fact, they're saying basically there is no color. So it's constructed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And not only that, I mean, when they dug deeper, they realized that in quantum entanglement with consciousness now, they're realizing that everything, you know,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
these mechanisms are manipulated by phenomena. They don't need to, they can put images, video, and communications onto video recorders, cassette tapes, and digital recordings without
Mhm.
them even being in a device to operate them, without power, without
Had that.
anything. We've had that. So, and audible things, cassette recorders, tape recorders, and things.
Mhm.
We don't need to have even the cassette in a tape recorder. It just needs to be placed on the side, and it will place it onto the magnetic strip. It was only realised through experiments that accidentally it was one of those old 80s tape recorders. You remember the old, you had like a figure eight cable, round things like that.
Mhm.
You plug into the back. And you had to really push them in to make sure they were powered. And
Mhm.
on this occasion, it wasn't pushed in properly. They pressed record, went about the business, went through the session of the experiment, look, come back to the recording, and noticed it's not going round. And he thought, oh, why ain't it going? What's happening? Is it working? Not working? He pushed the cord in a little bit more, and it started to work. He realised they'd lost the whole session, but they hadn't, because when we playing the cassette back, the session was on there of the interactions from phenomena. So it didn't rely on a cassette going round and recording. So that led into experiments where they removed the recording head and removed the power, and it's still captured. So then he realized, well, all we need to do is put a cassette on the side. So once they started doing that, they realized that, what if it works with video? So they decided to get photographs for still cameras, which were purchased, filmed, and placed in a glass case, locked up, never
Mhm.
opened, never exposed, and had the session and had that, went and took it and had it exposed, and there was information and writings and all sorts of bloody stuff on it. And it's the same for video recordings, and it's the same for Bacchi in Italy, who was doing the same thing with his radio. The science guys
Mhm.
came along and said, let's put it into this. They had to build it a very special, thorough, double-layered Faraday cage, big box. You put the equipment in it. There's no signals going to penetrate it or not. Known by science, Faraday cage will restrict all that. So there shouldn't be anything coming through. Still came through. They couldn't suss that. They even went into the radio and took out the tubes of the radio. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's now a non-operative piece of equipment, and it still didn't stop them. So they bend and manipulate our understanding of perception, reality, and even the mechanics of how things work. It's not required. So they can bend all that. There was experiments where, the metaphysicality has been proven, where
Mhm.
they show things to be physical and non-physical. The same thing that you would expect in a paranormal case. Things like such as poltergeist disturbances where something's come flying through the wall and then landed. It's materialized, and dematerialization is not always the same process. That's a separate thing. However, when you talk about metaphysicality, it's all about the item as metaphysically changed from its physical aspect to pass through the wall, to come out through the wall, and as soon as it comes out from the wall, it changes its metaphysical aspect to physicality. Boom, and lands on the ground. So they're manipulating even our items and in our reality. So the problem with that is, when we start to sort of research that, becomes very problematic because the rule book don't work. They
Yeah,
can
we're
defy the rational ways of physics. Now, trying to explain that to a physicist is an absolute nightmare. So, in the larger think tanks I'm involved in,
Mhm.
when they started talking about the phenomena, and just because we might see a UFO in the sky doesn't necessarily mean it's physical, because we can't tell the difference
Right.
visually between physical and non-physical items, just as like paranormal stuff and materializations. The problem of that is that there are clues in the non-metaphysical aspects of UFOs, such as they're not appearing on radar, or they are and then they're not, and then they are and then they're not, because they're jumping from metaphysicality to physical. They're jumping
Mhm.
it, going backwards and forwards. That some of them will crash into the ground in a physical manner, which is usually down to gifting sites. The phenomena doesn't crash into the ground.
Right.
It's
That's what
never
I
going to
thought
crash.
too.
Well, they're on about these things bringing these things down, but it's only coaxing and enticement. That's all it is. And to the phenomena, they're on the grand scale of what's behind it. Thinks, I don't mind sacrificing as long as it gets what it wants. And sometimes what it wants is to educate us in regarding technological advancement. They
Mhm.
do want that. They want us to be advanced to the point where we're kids with matches. That the advancements in technology is faster than spiritual and consciousness growth in humanity. It's 100 to 1 at this moment. That's not good. We will
Mhm.
end up in the same state as the phenomena where there is that advanced physicality and technology, but sometimes doing stupid things which kind of think that was a bit daft to do, which the phenomenon sometimes displays. Just because they do that doesn't mean that they have a lower intelligence. It's just difference of ways of thinking. Um,
Mhm.
Going into the water, I'm not splashing, so there's no wakes, of a physical nature. Well, yes, if they're physical, then you'll have a splash and then you'll see them leave water and enter water, and there'll be the normal physical actions taking place. Sometimes they're not. So they're going into water as if the water doesn't exist. Water doesn't exist to them, it only does to us, but it doesn't to them. So they're going in it, and there's no wake, there's no splash. It's as if the water isn't there. And that's the same process of going into volcanoes, hillsides, cliffs. They love to do that. They seemingly are residing geologically on the planet and terrestrial based. However, their capabilities in regarding metaphysical aspects, which are changeable, allows them to manipulate our reality perfectly. It's like it's built for them or might have been built by them.
Yeah, I'm
You've got to
thinking so
consider that,
too.
really, I suppose.
That's crazy. I mean, obviously, I believe what you're saying. It's just, I'm convinced that people don't want disclosure. If they knew what was actually going on, they'd be like, I'm out.
Listen, mate, there are people, I know there are people. When we started putting out information, I caught the eye of the US government and they want to know who I was, where I obtained the information. But they were curious as we got it, and we got it through the research and the work that we're doing. And we're putting it out to the public. And there was a little bit of an upset there because they have the same information, but they are restricted to put it out to the public as and when they want to, when we can, because we're not sanctioned. And I said we're
Hmm.
unsanctioned, we work for the public, and you can't control the flow of information with us because we're not sanctioned, you know. What followed that was large offerings of money
Mm.
to toe the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of money.
Mm.
And that means
Yeah.
you've got to completely walk away and allow control from others, which are in the game, in the business and working with them. So we're just kind of being monitored in regarding the release of information and stuff. So we do they know about us and Project O. I've talked to people um, only a few months ago when there was an individual who works closely with those people up there in that top layer. And he knew about everything, you know, and he said, oh, he's discussed about Project Doorway and even some of the things that we just got ahead of them, you know. And it's about because the methodology of how we might perceive it and how we might go about certain experiments to obtain it. They kind of go afterwards, oh, bloody hell, didn't think of that. That's a good idea. You know, and then but we kind of beat them to the punch, so they don't really like that, but they can't control it. You know, it's just one of those things. So
Hmm.
they wanted, I mean, they could have gone undetected if they wanted to, but no, they didn't want to. They wanted to let us know, you know, like being followed by a car for weeks on end because I was on the MOD watch list for 2 years. Said that I
Oh
could be a
my
spy.
God.
Said I could be a spy. I'd be prejudiced to the country. And apparently, according to that, shown me in writing, I do not have to be guilty to be convicted. Yeah, they design the rules for them, you know, so it's locked tight. But I think they're quite happy to keep us there, keep an eye on
Hmm.
us, see what else we're going to come up with. Might give them some ideas, and then, but sometimes they're ahead of us on certain things. So, you know, but we know they know what we're doing, and
Hmm.
we know that they do. So it's kind of a level game in a sense of speaking, you know. But it gets
That's
knowing.
incredible. You had to, I mean, being on this like the civilian end of it, you had to feel very, very, I mean, obviously you're a validated researcher, but that had to make you feel like, okay, like we thought we were on the trail of it, but now we know for sure. And
Absolutely, we know for sure. That happens quite a lot, you know, when you're pushing a
yeah.
game. But I don't do half measures. I mean, if I wanted to say, if I wanted to know about something, you know, a particular place, maybe it's owned by the National Security Agency, I would take, you know, my attitude back then was to take A4 color photographs of it and send them to the general in Fort Meade, America, National Security Agency headquarters. And they didn't like that. Bloody hell, that was bad. They put me through hell. So,
Good Lord. So this does seem to be, let me back up to this. It seems to me like the phenomenon itself is kind of architecture to whatever these beings are, where they can construct it around themselves to where they can hide in plain sight. And if they want to be seen, they'll allow us to see them. But
Mm.
all indications are that I hate to be shallow here, but it's almost like the Matrix, right? Where a lot of
it
this
is.
reality
Everything's pointing
is
towards it, you know,
that's
everything.
scary.
It's like the program has been made by them, or they're the operators, one of the two.
Yeah.
And our reality and where we fit in is completely monitored, manipulated, even steered
Yeah.
for their satisfaction. And it's fundamentally part of reality, is part of our life, and they're part of with it. So us trying to chip away at it and separate it is not going to work. Trying to understand it best we can is probably the best way forward because we've only got 70, 80 years if we're lucky to do that. And it does take a
Hmm.
long time. And I don't, there's no way I'm going to achieve it, and probably maybe the next person along, who knows? But at the end of the day, it needs a group effort. But
Hmm.
people need to wake up because the phenomena shrouds itself in so much,
Hmm.
secrecy and mystery and evasion. I mean, flipping it, there's nothing more hyper evasive than the phenomena.
Hmm.
To us, it's like we're kids in a sweet shop, the little kid in the sweet shop saying, "Oh my God, can I have this, please?" And some of those are privateers in defense contractors, which are obtaining things through interactions with these this type of phenomena to be gifted, and sometimes they're gifted in a physical sense, and sometimes they're gifted or rewarded in other ways. Either
Hmm.
way, though, if it's not wealth or health or success, they'll find something, which is worth gifting for, and then they'll sell it privately. Some of this tech that they might get on the markets and patent markets when the painted it for 160 million for one
Yeah.
item. Well, I know one item is 160 million. So sometimes though the phenomenon leaves its prints. We talked last time about dermalogical phenomena. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I believe a lot of it is subdermal, to be honest with you. But sometimes the subdermal markings will outreach to the point where they appear on the skin, but this it's actually from the inside out on some of these, as opposed from in poltergeist cases or things that are not too nice, they can cause scratch marks appear. Now we've had that plenty of times,
Hmm.
or burn marks. Um, but there has been on occasions you've left hand marks. Now, what's interesting is that the particular hand marks we've seen, which we got photographs of, is of an individual who was involved in invocation. It's the top part of the hand you're seeing, not the bottom.
Oh my God, Steve. No way.
Mm.
Yeah, we got those photos. I can show you those photos. Yeah,
That is the craziest thing and again, I mean that with respect. Like that
yeah,
is,
it is.
because
It's a
the
shame.
subdermal scarification, that alarmed me, right? Because it's like, I've never heard people talk about this.
You might say, well, why would they want to do that with various different beliefs and religions if they
Right.
didn't know it's all one source?
That's exactly right, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes, the according to us, right, even the practitioners, those are separate traditions.
Mm.
And yet the phenomenon again, right? What do they have a fear of? It's what they have a faith in. What they have a faith in, and that's their model.
Yeah.
It's the source.
Mm.
Yes. I mean, I've been at one ritualistic site, which I did, which I didn't like being involved in, and
Mhm.
I removed myself from there and went and sat in the car. And whilst it was being done, the pens in the middle of the car where there's a places where to put cup
The
holes, as
console.
a console, put a few pens in there. The During that process, the items in the console were moving around on their own, including the pens, and the temperature did drop vastly. And I mean,
Mhm.
in a physical sense, because I could see my breath. Um, and it is soul grabbing, I admit, especially when it becomes vocalized. And what it wants is say it there is very large references, very loud
Mhm.
sounds coming out of the air, and that was I was out there. I'm not, there is a limit. There is a limit, because I want to be able to continue the work I do without drawing the eye of the phenomena. But You know, the visualizations with in regards to ritualistic practices are sometimes to the point where you end up with shadow figures accompanying you
Mhm.
in that ritualistic practice, whatever those are. They're actually part of
Yeah.
the parcel. Some of them are small, some of them are large. And that was one involving, was it ancient Latin, wasn't it?
Yes.
The ancient Latin version, yeah. And that wasn't good neither, was it? So, you know, so it's a tricky business, but they all lead to the same path, to the same door.
Yes.
So no matter, you know, there are several ways of invocation or ritualistic practices to catch the eye of the phenomena. There are long ways around it, which are more safer through the process of seance, the right type of seance, or which can take sometimes up to 2 or 3 years to get it right. Or there is the fast route, but the fast route through the ritualistic approach is like gets their attention straight away, but they're not don't tend to be too nice about that. You know, they're I don't know if they don't like it, the short route or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be advantageous or safe process to do so. You know,
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, yeah, that's all
does
right.
surprise me. All right, buddy.
Incredible session, guys. Jackie, always a
Yep.
pleasure to see you. And
And you as well,
Steve,
darling.
likewise, brother.
Yeah, let's keep in
Um,
contact, buddy. I'll send
uh,
you over some details again, and
okay.
let me know when you can access. If you access that stuff, then I can put some more stuff in there.
I
All
will.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All
Have a
right.
good evening.
right, buddy.
Take care. Bye bye.
Catch you later, buddy.